Hey, I'm Abby. It's so nice to meet you. I'm currently occupying the unceded and ancestral territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, Stalo, Kikite, and Coquitlam nations, known as so-called Port Moody. A newer practice for me has actually been to name the stewardship and the lands in which I spent most of my life, and that is the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, and the Mississauga of the Credit territories in what is known as so-called Toronto. So I got into counseling kind of because of a TV show. My background is actually in business and fashion journalism, and through that experience, I felt a really strong disconnection to purpose and community, and all of these things that were lacking within that kind of industry. And so I spent a lot of time just watching things like Friday Night Lights, which did not age well, and Grey's Anatomy, and was touched by the connection of it all, and really wanted to make my life um, be more purposeful in that regard. And since apparently I make all my big life decisions based on TV shows, I packed my bags, moved across the country, and did my master's, and now here we are. I think for counseling, it's the relationship hands down. I think we're always yearning for connection in one way or another. And it's really the connection and the camaraderie that makes even the most difficult situations bearable. There's actually research that shows the co-regulation that happens in therapy rewires the brain, which I also think is super cool. And finally, there's a space created in counseling that isn't available anywhere else. There's a degree of separation and space to explore and deep dive without judgment that is a lot harder with friends, partners, families, and other relationships. But in counseling, that space is really just there for you to understand yourself and to be in alignment with yourself. Um, there's a quote, an unexamined life is not worth living. And I think there's some truth to that, although I might not go to that extent. I think there's a lot of things in life that are worth living for, but I do think that purpose and fulfillment really comes from this intentional, connected, and relational way of being in the world. And that's really hard to do if you don't have the space to examine and explore your life. We're all kind of in this rat race to get to a point where we can find joy and fulfillment. And I think counseling is one way where we can actually just stop, examine what we've been indoctrinated with, make intentional relational steps forward so that we can find these pockets of joy and fulfillment right here in the here and now. Simply put, you don't know what you don't know. And there is a beautiful generativeness to working with another person that you just can't find if you go and do it yourself. Having someone guide you through building your business to really support you and adding this nuance, the way that you practice counseling and therapy, it opens up avenues for insights and considerations that you never would have thought about. It also makes the process a lot less overwhelming, saves you a lot of time, energy, and money in having to figure it out yourself and making costly mistakes. I've been there, I've made the mistakes for you, and allows you to focus on the parts that really do need your attention. I mean, we're all busy enough, and getting support means that you can take some of those pieces off your plate so you can really focus on what matters. Finally, one piece that's often not talked about when we talk about why business strategy coaching and clinical supervision is important is that someone you've built a relationship with, someone you trust, is there to invite you back into practices that honor and are in alignment with your collective ethics when we inevitably slip out of it, because we exist in this colonial white supremacist capitalist world, and existing in it while trying not to replicate these values is a really difficult, messy, and murky process. The great thing is, it's not a process where you have to go at it alone. In fact, it's probably not the most useful to go at it alone. Everything is grounded in ethics, the person you want to be and the world that you want to create. We open up the space for you to really contextualize your experience and then decide how you want to move forward, given the realities that kind of exist in your orbit. I tend to ask a lot of questions. I throw in a lot of dad jokes, and I'm generally pretty direct and straightforward. And we're usually a good fit if you tend to process out loud and you're looking for some collaborative generativity, meaning we kind of both just show up and see where it takes us. In my experience, everything is interconnected. And so that generative process is really grounded in the structure of context and intentionality and ways in which you want to navigate your life moving forward. Anti-oppression to me is an embodied practice and an anti-perfectionism project that is grounded in continual growth, openness, accountability, and a commitment to staying implicated in how we might be perpetuating these oppressive systems and then centering the most harmed, especially when it inconveniences us to do so. I think knowing what the system is and how it functions is important, and all of these practices are very important. And I think what's more important is how we relate to one another and what actions we take to disrupt how oppression has been normalized within the structures and how you view the world. So, in my practice, I'm always going to be supporting you in drawing from context and exploring our complicity and the ways that we are harmed and benefit from the system. What underlies this work is this compassionate but strategic discernment of what is and isn't yours to hold and what is and isn't your responsibility to change. I think personal responsibility is great, but if you're going to go the route of personal responsibility, you might as well be accurate and you might as well have collective accountability ingrained in it. Otherwise, it's only one piece of the story. My role is never to talk you into responding in one way or another, but to open up the space for you to explore the way you want to navigate these systems with intentionality and the scope of interconnectedness. It's going to be pretty chill. I'll most likely ask you what's been going on and what you want to focus on, and then go from there. In my experience, again, everything is kind of interconnected. So it always comes back to and adds nuances to the core process that you're trying to work on. As we work together, we get a sense of your value systems and the ethics that kind of inform your goals, keeping in mind as we entangle and intentionally and more accurately kind of restory and recontextualize your experience. We also generally end every session with feedback and finding something concrete for us to move forward with and then reconvene from there. It's like very partner in crime vibes. And for consulting and clinical supervision, it's very much the same, except we'll probably start off with an exploration of the collective ethics that you want to ensure shows up in your practice and really get to the heart of your commitment to the ethics that you hold sacred and how that shows up in your practice.